Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, when you hear that music, you get fired up.
Yeah,
That's
good
baby making music.
That's
there.
right. That's a good riff there.
It is. Get the guitar licks coming in.
I feel like Will Ferrell in that movie where he's playing the flute.
That's where the quote I just said was from. Did you not get that?
Nah.
It's baby making music.
I get you now.
They're in the same scene.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not great with movies.
All right. So let's start out with some new Patreon supporters. We got Aaron Peel, Gina Ubunko, Deb Predmore, Melissa Swigart, and Melissa jumped out at our highest level.
Awesome.
We got Warner Hobart, and those are our new Patreon supporters. We appreciate everyone. And then we had Gibbs, Andrew Barker supported us on PayPal all the way from the UK. And real cool dude. He's reached out to me a couple times on our Unsolved Facebook message.
Wonder if he knows Princess Kate.
I don't know. I like her. She's a cutie.
Yeah.
We're going to go somewhere with that, or?
No. But thank you.
All righty. No, we appreciate it, Andrew. We appreciate everybody that supports us. New, all the people that have stuck with us. You know, it helps us keep on producing the shows, putting out content, and it just really means a lot.
Yeah, it really does.
You and I talk about this a lot, off air, that how much it means to us that people are willing to support us, how many people are downloading and listening.
I'm still shocked and amazed
to something that we're putting out.
Yeah.
It makes us feel so good. It really does.
And I'm still shocked and amazed by the social media turnout that we get time in and time out.
Yeah. So speaking of that, if you haven't checked out the True Crime All the Time Facebook group page or group, it's not a page, it's a group.
Yeah.
Definitely check that out. It's a closed group. That thing is just taking off like crazy. And the discussions in there are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
People talking about the cases that we do, cases that they want to see, people coming up with things that we didn't think about to talk about, like on Unsolved, for instance.
Yep.
Alternate theories.
Love
all that.
Pick on Gibby forums.
Yeah. They're talking about the drinking game. It's just all kinds of good stuff. So check that out. Make sure you visit our website. You know, if you're going to do any Amazon shopping, that's a great way to support the show. You know, go to truecrimeallthetime.com, click on the Amazon banner. Doesn't cost you anything extra. Amazon just gives us a little love for helping you get to a place that you could have gone to anyway by yourself.
That's right.
You're just helping to support the show. You know, while you're there, check out all of our contact information. If you're not following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Do that. Interact with us. Gibby and I love that.
Yeah, look me up. Gibby_True Crime on Twitter.
Yeah, he's a superstar on Twitter.
That's right. So we're thinking about doing a little Q&A on Facebook Live coming up in the near future.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking for it. Gibby and I are not the most technologically advanced people in the world, but we know some people that can help us.
Yeah. We know how to work an iPhone a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we're good with Twitter. We're good with Facebook.
I know how to swipe.
Gibby's good with Tinder. No, just kidding. But we're not up on all some of the latest technology, but we got some folks that can help us, so we'll get it going.
Yeah.
People have been asking for it, and I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I'll hold the camera, the phone, face it at Mike here so you guys can see what he looks like, and he can answer those intriguing questions that I know you want to ask him.
Make sure you check out True Crime All the Time, episode dropping on Herbert Mullen. And gosh, Gibbs, this guy is something else.
He is. It's just bizarre, man.
Yeah, more bizarre than I think anything we've done is when it comes to the reasons why he kills. He kills a lot of people.
Yeah, but a really strange rhyme and reason behind it.
Yeah, the reasoning behind it is unlike anything that we've ever covered, for sure. All right, Gibbs, we've got a voicemail that we want to play.
Hello, Mike and Gibby. It's Jess from Clemson, South Carolina. I was just calling to say thank you so much for a wonderful podcast. I look forward to Sundays every week and keep up the good work. Love you guys.
And we love you too, Jess.
Now, does your mom know that you called in?
So we can say that because we interact with Jess a lot on social media. We give each other a lot of crap, and
She's our buddy.
yeah, she is our buddy, and we appreciate it. Gibbs asked for more voicemails, and people are responding.
Yeah. Need more, though.
Yeah,
Pick up the phone. Call us.
we need at least one an episode.
Say whatever you want to say.
I mean, there for a while, gosh, we went how many episodes with just a handful?
Yeah.
We had 3 last week.
Yeah. Need more. Call us.
Yeah, we do like the voicemail, and we love the interaction on social media and all that great stuff. All right, Gibbs, enough is enough. Let's get into the topic for this episode, and it's the New Bedford highway killer, right? This is an unsolved case, and as we got into the research on this one, Gibbs, I think we realized that there's probably not as much out there as we thought there was going to be. So this episode might not be quite as long, but we actually toyed around with the idea of should we put an episode out? It's a holiday weekend, but we ultimately came to the conclusion that we got to put one out.
Yeah.
Right? We've tried to do one every week. We keep it going, but this one might not be quite as long as our normal duration. So the New Bedford highway killer, we're talking about a serial killer that murdered 9 women, and then there was also 2 other women that went missing. And this is New Bedford, Massachusetts, and the time frame on this is between July 1988 and June of 89. So less than a year time frame. 11 women, 9 confirmed, and 2 additional that have never been found. I know the families, they hold out hope, and hopefully these 2 women will someday be found. But realistically, Gibbs, we're going on 30 years. It's 28 years it's been.
Right.
For 27, 28 for some of these. That's a very long time. Now, there have been women, especially women, that have been held, and men as well, boys. We've done some stories, right? That have been held for very long periods of time to escape and show up much later. But these women had a lot of ties to the other 9. And that makes it, to me, a little more doubtful. Now, I hate to say that. I don't want to, I hate for families to lose any hope.
Right. We're not trying to burst any bubbles here.
No, but I mean, I think you have to speak realistically and put the facts out there. And the facts are that these two women that have never been found shared very similar characteristics with the 9 women that were found. And that's why they are grouped together as victims of the New Bedford highway killer. That's part of it. Now, speaking of similarities, all of these victims were known sex workers, right, Gibbs? On top of that, they were known drug users, and most of them were well known in the area known as Weld Square. And this is an area that is in New Bedford ripe for prostitution and drugs. So Gibbs, I mean, really what this whole case comes down to are the known victims and then some suspects. And that's what we got. And we're going to lay that out in the best way we know how. So we'll start with the victims. We always do. Like we said, there's 11. And we're going to go in order of the last known sighting of each one of these victims, because you will see the order different. You could see it based on when they were found, of the 9 that were found, but we're choosing to go in order of last seen. So we're going to start with a woman named Robin Rhodes, and Robin was 28 years old, and she was last seen in New Bedford in April of 1988. Now, Robin's body was found March 28th, 1989, and it was found off of Route 140, off the southbound side of Route 140. And you're going to see this Route 140, it comes in a lot, Gibbs.
It does. It's right there with Route 140.
Route. So Gibbs, I mean, Robin was not found for almost an entire year.
That's a long time, man. It's sitting out there.
Yeah, and all they found, as you can imagine, were skeletal remains. Because that, like you said, that's a long time to sit out there. And we're going to be talking about this as we go along, Gibbs. A lot of these victims, by the time they're discovered, all that's left is skeletal remains. So then you get into talking about identification, identified by dental records. So the next person to go missing is Rochelle Doparala. She was also 28 years old, last seen in New Bedford in April of 1988. Now, Gibbs, her body would not be found until December 10th of 1988. So that is a long time, too.
That is.
And not as long as Robin, but long enough for the decomposition to occur. And her remains are found in a gravel quarry off Interstate 195 in Dartmouth.
All right, Mike. So the next victim was last seen on May of 98, and that was Deborah McConnell. She was 25. Now, her body would not be found until December 1st of 1988. So 7 months later?
Yeah, what's strange about it, Gibbs, is here again, we're talking about this Route 140, or Route 140, as you call it.
Exactly.
But I have a question. And my question is, why is it taking so long to find these bodies?
So with Deborah, she was found down an embankment, and she was found nude with a bra tied around her neck. So I think we can assume that she was probably strangled.
Yeah, I think that's an assumption that could be made. I mean, why else would the bra be there? And then we get to Deborah Medeiros, 30 years old, last seen on May 27th, 1988. And apparently, Gibbs, she had walked out on her boyfriend. They had had a fight. And her remains were discovered on July 2nd, 1988. So Deborah Medeiros was actually the first victim found. Right? This is kind of a weird order, but we're talking about the victims in the order that they were last seen. But Deborah Medeiros was the first victim actually found. And she was found in a wooded area, again, off of this Route 140. But even though she was found July 2nd, 1988, she would not be identified until February of 1989. So that's a long time. Took them quite a while to identify who this person was. And one interesting fact about where Deborah Medeiros was found, Gibbs, it was said that it was exactly across the highway from where the first person we talked about, Robin Rhodes, was found. Not just on the same highway, directly on the other side, right? One on the northbound side, one on the southbound side, but in the same proximity.
So the fifth victim is Christine Montero. She was 19. She was the youngest victim of the 11. She was last seen in New Bedford, and this was late May of 1988. Now, her remains were never found.
Well, then I think you have to go, Gibbs, with Marilyn Roberts. She was 34 years old, last seen June 1988, and just like Christine, her body has never been found either. So these are the two, Christine Montero and Marilyn Roberts, out of the 11 that have never been found. Now, Gibbs, we have to talk a little bit about Christine Montero and Marilyn Roberts because they were neighbors. And they had another common bond. Besides the fact that they were neighbors, both of their fathers were police officers. So I don't know what that means, but it's interesting.
So victim number 7 was Nancy Pava, 36, last seen in New Bedford on July 7th, 1988. Now, her body was found just 23 days later on July 30th. The body was located on I-195 westbound in Westport. It was reported that she had an argument with her boyfriend earlier on the 7th.
Now, Gibbs, that's the second victim that we've talked about that it was mentioned specifically that they had an argument with their boyfriend on the day they disappeared, and they would ultimately be found murdered.
Yeah.
Interesting in the fact that when you're tying all this together...
Is there any similarities between the two cases because of that? I don't know.
Or is it just an interesting tidbit?
I'm going to go with tidbit.
Out of 11 victims, 2 of them happen to have arguments with their boyfriend. So then we get to Deborah DeMello, and Deborah was 35 years old, last seen July 11th, 1988. So one thing we have to talk about, Gibbs, we haven't talked about this yet. These are all happening very, very quickly, right? If you run down the line, April, 3 in May, 1 in June, July, now we're talking about July again. This is not a long stretch of time.
It's pretty rapid.
No, all of these are happening within a very small amount of time for the number that we're talking about.
This killer's got an appetite.
Yes, there's no doubt. We're talking about the last time that these women were seen. We don't actually know when they were killed. We know when they were found, when their bodies were found, but my assumption is that they were killed very quickly from the time that they were last seen, because he's moving on to another victim very quickly.
Yeah, and in some of the cases we're seeing how the body has decomposed over a period of time. And for that to happen, clearly they were killed early on for the body to decompose by the time that they're found.
Yeah, I don't think this is a situation where these people are being kept for extended periods of time and then killed. I guess that's where I'm getting. And I'm making a leap here.
Yeah, I can see where you're saying they're not being kidnapped, held against their will, caged
for a long period of time.
Right.
So it's a leap, but it's based on some of the facts that we know. Because we just talked about Nancy Pava, last seen on July 7th. Now we're talking about Deborah DeMello, last seen on July 11th. So those are 4 days apart. I don't think this killer is holding multiple people. I think they are finding a target. That person is probably being killed fairly quickly to be able to move on in a number of days to the next victim.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the simple fact that he targets prostitutes, gets his fix. Maybe part of his fix is strangulation along with the sexual assault, and then he simply rolls them off somewhere on the highway.
So Deborah DeMello is found November 8th. She's actually found inside of an on-ramp. Like, the like a circle on-ramp.
Yeah.
A very strange place to me, Gibbs, to dispose of a body.
Open the door and let her roll out.
Well, but it also, why does it take so long to find her?
Well, it could be some heavy brush down there that she rolls into.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. That one just kind of stuck out at me. I understand that some of these women were, disposed of off of the road, maybe in the woods or something like that. It took a while for somebody to come along and find them. But this seems to me like this would be very heavily traveled. So unless, to your point, there is a lot of brush, or there had to have been something that concealed this body from all these cars that are traveling this on-ramp. Had to have been. So we move forward to Mary Santos. She was 26 years old, July 16th. This is only 5 days after Deborah DeMello. Now, the body of Mary Santos was found 8 months later, and it was found along another highway, Route 88, and this is out in Westport. And it was said that her body was found about 25 feet off of the road. Again, I go back to it, and maybe I'm harping on it too much, but it just seems like a long time, 8 months.
25 feet off the road, though, I mean, that's a good distance. If you're traveling at a normal rate of speed, 25 feet, unless you're sitting in the passenger seat and you've got good eyes.
Yeah, you're right. Because, I mean, how many people are actually walking along a highway?
Not many.
Not many. Unless somebody was to break down right at that spot, have to go to the bathroom and venture off into the woods.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, you always have that one buddy that can spot a deer out in the field where nobody else can see it when you're driving, but that's...
Yeah, but this is a body probably concealed by brush or, a wooded area. So, yeah, I think I'm wrong in that. So then the next victim is Sandra Botelho. She was 24 years old, last seen August 11th. So now he's waited almost a month. And I say he because I assume this is a male targeting women. Her body would not be found until April of the next year. And it was found in Marion along Interstate 195. So we've got some similarities here, Gibbs. We've got a number of women that are found on this Route 140. We've got a number of women that are found along this Interstate 195. So I think that plays into this somehow, right? Are these roads that the killer travels, is familiar with, right? He's operating in, I think, a fairly small radius. Now we get to the last victim, and this is Don Mendez. Don was 25 years old, last seen September 4th. We're still in 88, right? This whole thing happens in 1988. we go from April to September. Her body's found, fairly quickly, November, so within a couple of months compared to some of the other ones. And again, she's found on the north side of Interstate 195. So to me, Gibbs, there's really only, out of these 11 victims, there's really only about 3 or 4 main dump spots, I'll call them.
So yeah, Mike, 140 and 195 intersect.
So that tells us something. The other thing is that, we mentioned a couple towns, Freetown, Westport. These are all pretty close together. My thought process, Gibbs, is that this killer is local. He's abducted all of these women from New Bedford. He's disposed of all the bodies that were found within a very small radius and close to New Bedford. So this is not a person coming in from, out of state.
Right.
To commit these murders, because they've all been committed within a short period of time as well. So this is a local person targeting prostitutes, knows the area, knows where they can dump a body probably and not be detected because they have this familiarity with the area. All right, Gibbs, we got to dive into suspects. And the first person we're going to talk about is Anthony DeGrazia. And the reason why we have to talk about Anthony is because in May of 1989, he was arrested for several violent rapes of known prostitutes. So right there, that puts him on police radar. Now, interesting fact about Tony is that he was well known by the prostitutes in New Bedford. They called him Flat Nose. After this sexual assault in 1989, DeGrazia posts bond. And almost immediately, Gibbs, he's arrested again for committing another sexual assault. He posts bond again for that. This is in 1990. And then after that, he dies. And the police believe that he committed suicide. Now, they investigated him hard for these murders, but they couldn't come up with any evidence, or I shouldn't say any evidence, but strong enough evidence to link him to any of the crimes. But there were a lot of things that made him a possible suspect. I mean, we talked about, all of these different charges around sexual assault. They happened on known prostitutes. They happened in 88, 89, 90. That's the time frame in and after all of the New Bedford killings. In several of these cases, Gibbs, the women said that he had choked them. And we know, Gibbs, that 3 of the victims were strangled. 2 were found with ligature marks on their body. And then the cause of death on the rest is unknown, so they could have been strangled too. We just don't know. Interesting suspect, not enough evidence to link him to the crimes, and ultimately he dies, so...
Right, so there's no investigation.
It has to be closed, right?
Right.
Can't prosecute a dead man. That brings us to Kenneth Pont. And Kenneth is the only person to be indicted for any of these crimes. And he was 40 years old in 1990 when he was indicted for the murder of Rochelle Doparala, who we talked about. Now, just like Anthony DeGrazia, Kenneth Pont had past indiscretions as well, and these included known drug use, possible drug selling, and he also had a previous altercation that involved Rochelle Doparala. So all of that puts him on police radar, Gibbs, for sure.
Absolutely.
I think the thought process, Gibbs, from the police and district attorney point of view, was that Pont had murdered Doparala because she was going to expose his drug activities. That's what they thought. Now, Kenneth Pont was an attorney in New Bedford. It would come out that he had actually represented Doparala in a case in April of 1988. Now, keep in mind that she was last seen in April of 1988. So, I mean, again, Gibbs, there's some pretty strong tie-ins here that can't be ignored. Now, like we said, Pont was indicted, and at the time, he was living in Florida. He had moved there in September of 1988. And Gibbs, why is that important? It's because the last murder, or the last victim, was last seen in September of 1988.
Yeah. He got out of town.
And this guy just happens to move to Florida in September of 1988.
That's interesting.
That's why this guy is such a good suspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's living in Florida by the time that he's indicted in August of 90. He enters a plea of not guilty and he posts bond. Now, ultimately, a year later, they end up dropping the murder charges against him. And the reason for that was that they just didn't have enough evidence. Now, Pont would be in the news again in 2009, once for the fact that police were digging up his old home in New Bedford. They were looking for more evidence to try to link him to any of these murders. And then that same month, a little bit later, Gibbs, he was actually arrested for shoplifting. And what was found on him, to me, is just laughable.
It's crazy.
So he has 4 cans of sardines and a block of cheese.
What the heck, man?
Well, I mean, he's a former disgraced attorney, I guess, down on his luck, and he needs some cheese and sardines, man.
Let me have some sardines and some cheese.
When you got a craving for sardines, you got to get sardines.
I will never have that craving.
Me neither. That's one thing that I crave a lot of stuff, but that's not one of them. In January of the next year, 2010, Pont dies. He's found dead. He's 61 years old by this point. And again, like we said, only person that has ever been charged in any way with anything having to do with these 11 victims. Now, the one thing I do think we have to talk about, Gibbs, is that police ruled that there was no foul play in this death. To me, that makes sense because I don't know why anybody would want to kill this guy. You know, let's say the real killer, if he didn't have anything to do with it, the real killer's not going to want to kill him because he's taking all the heat.
Right. Maybe it was just the 4 cans of sardines.
Maybe it's too many sardines.
That's a lot of sardines. That's
too
a lot
much cheese, too. That'll back you up.
Back you up, that's right. That's a lot of sodium from the sardines, and that's a lot of backup from the cheese.
Thank you, Steve. We have breaking news now out of New Bedford. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doreen Scanlon. A one-time suspect in the unsolved highway killings has died. 61-year-old Kenneth Pont was found dead in his New Bedford home Tuesday. Pont was the only person ever charged in the murders of 9 women whose bodies were discovered along Route 195 in the late 1980s. Pont was indicted in the murder of one of those women, but was cleared after a lack of evidence. His name resurfaced in 2007 when investigators began digging in his backyard, and the former attorney was arrested for stealing. In November, an ABC6 investigation on the highway killings found Pont had another run-in with police over the summer when he says a woman held a knife to his neck. But her version of the story is that Pont revealed secrets of the killings. That case is ongoing. At this time, Pont's death does not appear to have been suspicious.
So I think the one interesting part there, Gibbs, is that we didn't talk about was this run-in that he had with this lady who tells police that he told her details of the crime, details of the crimes. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, It makes him even more of a suspect.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it just pulls it all together even better.
But again, like DeGrazia, Pont is dead. So even if they came up with the evidence now, yeah, they'll solve the case, but they can't charge him. So now we get to a man named Daniel Tavares Jr. And Tavares actually killed his own mother. And while he was serving time in prison for this murder, he sent a bunch of letters claiming responsibility for these New Bedford highway killings. Now, he did live in New Bedford, and he also revealed some knowledge about another woman that had been murdered and where she was buried, and that was just a mile from his home. Now, this woman was not part of the 11 that we talked about. So this guy Tavares, we know he killed his mom. He was convicted of 2 other killings, and then he tells police about this woman, and he gets convicted of killing her. But on top of that, he's taking credit for the New Bedford highway murders, right? That's why he's a suspect. But it's the only reason why he's a suspect, right? I mean, besides the fact that he killed other people, it's mainly because he called himself a suspect.
He wrote a letter calling himself out.
So I don't know, Gibbs, on Tavares. I mean, other than, and we know from all the research and all the cases that we've done, people take credit for a lot of stuff that they didn't do. All right, Gibbs. So let's bring everything full circle. 11 victims, small area. 9 of the victims are found. 2 have never been found. I would say one really good suspect in Kenneth Pont.
I agree.
A pretty good suspect in Anthony DeGrazia. Both of them are dead.
Right.
And then you've got this guy Tavares, who I don't think they have any evidence whatsoever other than the fact that he at one point, I think, lived in New Bedford.
Yeah, just a crazy killer.
To me, that's more of a taking credit. He's already convicted. It's not going to hurt him, right? Maybe it gives him more cred. I don't know.
It could, yeah. A little prison cred can't hurt.
So like we said in the beginning, we know this wasn't going to be a super long episode, but it's one we wanted to tell. It's a story we wanted to tell. It's important. You've got these women that were brutalized. It's a case that I think a lot of people would like to see solved. Now, it's going to be pretty damn hard, Gibbs, if the actual killer is dead. If it was Pont, if it was DeGrazia, but it could be somebody totally off the radar.
It could be.
Could not be either one of those. And at some point, maybe, they will be able to put something together. That's something that we always hope for in the unsolved.
Absolutely.
But that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. And for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.